Welcome to the Digible Dudes podcast. I'm David.
I'm Reed.
Reed, we just recorded Trevor Park from RentDynamics, VP Marketing. They're doing a leasing enablement guide, which is more of an industry. I kind of almost want to say open source, but that's not the right. It's almost like a crowd share. Or how would you describe it?
Yeah, when you say crowd share, you just mean like kind of cooperatively sourced?
Yeah. Basically, like instead of it being a RentDynamics, even though Trevor's their piece to promote their product, they're getting industry experts and vendors and operators from around the industry to contribute to one particular resource about the best. I wouldn't even say the best way to like handle your leasing funnel as I understand it, but just almost like best practices through the leasing funnel, from like marketing to retention to renewals. So I think it's a really admirable, project that Trevor's sort of taken on himself for the industry, using RentDynamics as the, I guess, like the using RentDynamics resources to get it off the ground. But it's not easy. Basically, he wants to pull together what he mentioned as Nurture Boss, Flamingo, BetterBot, Amenify, Spruce, Digible, and others to pull together their best practices into one ebook, as you asked him about, and then share that with the industry. And then he's hoping that eventually he can parlay that into almost like a G2 crowd, if anybody's familiar. So just an open resource where you could look at and say, Highly is integrated with these folks in this way, or Digible is integrated with these folks in that way, and have that as a live, constantly updated resource so that it's easy to figure out, which partners may fit together or not fit together.
Yeah. Well, you use the word project. I think it almost feels like a cause, and one that we line up with. I mean, it's in our purpose of, the catalyst for progressive change.
Yeah.
Had a quick brain fart there, but
are we doing?
Yeah. What are we here for every day? But I was surprised you didn't. We only had 30 minutes, but you frequently ask, how does it all connect? And I asked them more from almost the format side of that, which is like, how are you going to, I guess, stitch this together, coming from all these different suppliers and operators, so that just the design and experience of the guide feels good. But what I didn't ask him myself either, but again, you usually go there, is how is this going to work? I asked him about ESG having its own section. He's like, yep, it probably will. But if you have BetterBot and Meet a Lease, are they going to be back-to-back pages talking about literally the exact same thing? Or once you get something from Meet a Lease, then you would kind of nudge BetterBot, hey, I already have content on that specific piece. Can you really cover this? Because if you don't have any kind of, editing or governance, funny enough to use the G in the ESG of the content that's coming in, it seems like it could feel pretty disparate if you were reading it. I mean, yes, hey, this is maybe the class or group of leasing agents, AI leasing agents section. But yeah, if there's no, I guess, programming to it, that's my, not concern, but just like one of the bigger challenges that he faces. And especially if he allows people, as he said, he was planning on updating it twice a year, to continue contributing. It's like, is some of that going to happen where I see that G5 wrote about this, and so we try to respond with that? And then who's going to kind of deal with that oversight of like what is going to be allowed to be updated, what's not? So I do love the cause. I think it's super ambitious, and the industry really needs something like this. So if anybody can pull it off, it's Trevor. But I'm still trying to get it sorted in my head how it's all going to come together.
Yeah, well, I think you make a good point, because he gave an example about when he was at BetterBot and how Perk had published something and had inaccurate information about BetterBot, and so he had pinged him on it. So you're right. And then that said, even if he was like, I'm just going to go to every vendor and get their collateral and put it all together into one like encyclopedia for anybody to reference, here's the collateral for the industry for 2023, for example, I feel like a lot of people would download that, because there's so many times that people ask like, hey, Digible, can you send us that collateral or this or pricing? Like if he pulled together every...
But that would be clean.
It would be. Yeah,
If it
I
was
see what
just
you're
like,
saying.
here's
Yeah.
all the collateral
Yeah.
from all the suppliers out there.
In fact, that would be really interesting for him to do when he gets to that G2 crowd portion. So it's like, here's what Digible integrates with, and here's their rate card. Wouldn't it be crazy? Now, then you would have folks that obviously we know many of the companies in the space don't like to provide their rate card to others. But it's where we should definitely go. So it'd be interesting.
I wonder if he's going to, not maybe himself, but it seems like he's equipped to, but put some forward into this, guide. It's like, here's the spirit of it, just laying out a lot of things, the points he made on the cast. And then I think it would make sense if he did break it up into sections to have kind of little intros before each one. That just creates a little bit more continuity, a little bit more user-friendly to me, where it's like, okay, now this is going to be ESG. Here's kind of the state of the industry. Here's some of the, leaders within that space and blah, blah, blah. But just nice little setups for each one.
Well, it definitely works well if it's not programmed, as you're saying. Like if he starts to get a bunch of like conflicting, like, well, I'll just take Betterbot and Perk. Let's say that they both submitted content and they were very counter to one another. Then it's helpful to include like that intro almost for each of them to pen that letter. So anyways, definitely he pulled off one already, which is, nice and impressive. Yeah. And then like now he's going into the second one and he's saying maybe publishing twice a year. So it's definitely going to be a hard thing to maintain. But like you said, like if anybody can organize it, I feel like it's Trevor. So power to him. And, I'm glad that he asked us to try to help out in some way. So we'll do our part.
And by the way, he's looking for a new growth marketer.
That's right. Yeah.
Just plugging that for you, Trevor.
He should. Yeah, he has an open position for a growth marketer. So if you're interested, then definitely reach out to Trevor.
Hit him up.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned. Listen in. Enjoy it. Okay, we're here with Trevor Park. Some folks will remember you, Trevor, from our NAA drop-in, where Reed thought I made too many dad jokes in a row. And I think you made too many F-bombs in a row. So I will hold back on the dad jokes.
I kept it to my limit.
He did. He told us up front, I'll cap this at 5, and he actually came through.
All right. Well,
whereas your dad jokes may have been way over 5.
Oh, okay.
Me and Trevor both were just like, man.
Yeah. But Trevor, you should be getting good on the dad jokes too, right? Aren't you due in like the next month or so?
Yeah, October 27th. It's coming.
It's crazy.
Up.
David's and Nicole's due date.
That's right.
Might have moved up to Halloween now.
Yeah, well, our big
Halloween
baby, it probably is going to come early. The doctor just keeps writing on our insurance like big baby, so we're now getting every 2 weeks we get an ultrasound because it's in the 98th percentile, Trevor. So they're kind of like, what the hell's happening? Because we're also at 9,000 feet. So it's supposed to be a small baby, and it's a big baby. So we think something's off. But anyways, that's not what you're here to talk about today. You're here to talk about the Leasing Enablement Guide that you're helping spearhead. So why don't you do a quick introduction and remind folks of your position at RentDynamics, and then what you are spearheading here with the Leasing Enablement Guide.
Yeah, so the Leasing Enablement Guide, well, let me start back. So I'm Trevor Park. I'm the VP of Marketing for RentDynamics. I've been in the industry for probably close to like 10-ish years. I've been in marketing for well over that, a bunch of different industries. And one of the things that I've just always had a passion for is working with all partners in the industries that I'm in and finding ways that we can connect and share data and share insights. And this is like the epitome of that. So the Leasing Enablement Guide is our way to share insights and data without it coming off as like a sales tactic or a commercial, but having it come in a way that we're just wanting to help spread the word of what's going on from a marketing trend standpoint, from a leasing trend standpoint. And this volume, so the first volume was really geared towards industry leaders on the operator side that had some really amazing tidbits that they wanted to add and just share to our first volume. And then now the second volume is going to be expanded on that and really focus on the entire leasing cycle. So starting from even like awareness with like SEO and advertising and signage and all that fun stuff and the benefits that has all the way through the leasing journey into retention and renewal and the different tactics that we can employ there. And we have, I want to say we're coming up on 20, 25 supplier partners and probably just the same amount as operators that are going to be in. So it's going to be a pretty big volume for this one that I think will have the ability to splice into a few different segments that we can share out.
And is the format of this guide, like I'll say templated or standardized, so from one supplier to the next? Meaning, should we think of it as effectively like an ebook, or how's it going to be kind of stitched together? What's the format?
Yeah, so ebook's the best way to put it. It's going to be very kind of like visually friendly. People are going to like to be able to like take screenshots of different like pull out quotes that we have in there, and then there's going to be varying levels of like graphic design that we'll pull in so that it's not just a shit ton of text. And from that piece, we're probably going to also look at kind of expanding the ways that we share this medium. So reading is obviously going to be a great one. The next piece is turning it into almost like an audiobook of sorts, where we'll have the supplier partners come back on and basically have them talk through their segment, and we'll create it in a series. So people that don't like to read can listen to it. People that don't want to just listen to something and want something to watch, we also will have the video series that will be a component of it. And the final piece is we purchased the domain leasingenablement.com, and that's going to be kind of like the hub for all of this stuff. So basically, if you have a question, you'll be able to type it into this engine of sorts, and it will be able to spit out a resource to you as to here's something that you might find useful that ties into the leasing enablement guide. Here's a vendor that kind of solves that solution that you're looking for, and have it kind of be just this one-stop shop for Google without the need to spend money on SEO or any sort of like paid advertising. It'll just be the one-stop shop that people can go to, type in what they're wanting to solve, and see the full list of vendors, probably just in an alphabetical order, that you can see everybody that's doing everything. And it'll be a free way that people can just throw their name up on a service and see all the vendors that are contributing to multifamily.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there's the good and the bad, I guess, of annual guides. So the good is that hey, this is the most recent edition, and therefore assume it's the most updated. But then there's the pressure, maybe more for you, is are you going to keep doing this year after year, and does it ever run the risk of either growing stale or just I don't know, people getting desensitized to it. So where I'm going with this is what I haven't seen is more of a dynamic guide that you could have like the last updated above an article or whatever, so that whenever you go in, it's always the freshest copy. I still get some value. I don't know about you, David, but like on ebooks that I see from 2014, but you see them out there floating around, like depending on what you're searching in Google. But then I'll be like, oh shit, this is an SEO tip from 2014. So yeah, I think it's cool.
I was going through my presentation from 2014, and I think I was talking about Google Plus. So definitely take that stuff with a grain of salt when you see the issue date.
Yeah, totally. But will there also be linking out as well, do you imagine, like in the guide? So somebody, if they do a video on YouTube, like that they would be able to either link out or update the guide? Or do you think it's going to be more this will be static and then
Yeah, so the guide itself will most likely be static, and we'll probably figure out ways that we'll be updating it quarterly. If not, we'll update it like twice a year. So it'll be updated first half of the year and then second half of the year. Ideally, I would say, like if I'm planning this out for next year, we'll have one that's launched right before leasing season kicks off, and then we'll have one that's launched right before budget season kicks off. And so I feel like those are going to be like the two most crucial times to have that full awareness, which we're definitely well past budget season now, but I think getting something out this year is going to be nice. If not, then looking towards getting it launched next year, and we'll just keep all the information stored and start building it out a little bit more robust. The website piece, that'll be something where I'm still trying to figure out how we can get it so that all of the supplier partners can just keep their information updated. If it's something where we have like an intern or something managing all the data and then you just submit a request to update, then they update it, that works. But then also having something where you can just log in and update your account and whatever information you want to share in there. And I would say if there's areas that you want to contribute to this website, almost thinking of it like a Wikipedia page where you can either A, get editor access to it or like whatever, or you could submit a change and then that change is reviewed by whatever committee we build for this thing. Because I don't want it just to be owned by RentDynamics. I'd love to have multiple people with their hands in this thing, and having it to where it's just kind of like thoughtfully maintained. I think that's what's going to give the longevity to it. And to keep it from getting stale or anything like that, we probably will have two different versions, like one that's focused on like top of funnel and leasing, and then two, another one that might be focused on stability and like retention. And how do you like balance those two? I feel like top of the year is going to be like, how do you drive that volume of traffic that you need? And then bottom of the year is how do you sustain that volume? How do you sustain that traffic coming through?
Yeah. Well, I got just one quick question, and then I saw David's taking a few notes here, so I'll let him jump in. But are you imagining this will serve, it seems like you are, but just about any class type, any kind of, I guess, point of view within the industry? So whether, I mean, I don't know if I should go extreme as far as affordable to like a class A, but also you mentioned Greystar, I think, before we got on the call versus, a portfolio of like, 5 to 10 properties. So do you see it serving everyone, or do you think that there's a sweet spot for the guide?
My ideal state, like I would say everyone. I feel like those that are like the class A, super luxury, you're getting $3,500 a month per unit sort of thing, like those can pick and choose a couple things. And then same thing on the affordable side. Like I've been lucky enough to work with Greystar and Pinnacle, and I mean, even the smaller shops too, like the last portfolio I worked on, I think it was like 19 communities and maybe 120,000. No, what was it? I can't remember the ARR that they were seeing in. I'm misquoting, but yeah, it was 19 communities. I can't remember the total unit count. I think it was probably 2,000 units tops. And so they didn't have like the biggest portfolio size, and so it's like nice to kind of have those varying degrees. So I feel like this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's like you're going to just talk about what are the standard trends going on, because I feel like everybody needs to have some sort of like awareness model that they're working on for marketing. They need to have some sort of way to have communications for their leads. They need to have some sort of way to manage those leads. They need to have some sort of way to budget. They need to be able to do X, Y, Z. And so they'll all be able to like pick and choose those different pieces of the funnel that work best for them. But yeah, I wouldn't tailor it specifically to like just class A or just affordable, but have that as kind of like your range in there. And if you have specific call outs where it's like, hey, like this is actually like talking on this topic, class A does this really well, and then affordable does that really well. And like that's how those two would really be differing if you have call outs like that.
Cool.
Well, Trevor, backing up for a second, you were telling us beforehand, I'm almost taking you in the hot take. I wrote it down as hot take because you were saying that in this industry, when people go to conferences or whatever, there tends to be a lot of folks saying, oh, we want to hear from Greystar or Lincoln or one of the operators versus on the vendor side. So you were saying one of your motivators for trying to pull this together, this, I'll call it industry resource, since you're clearly saying you don't want it to be just RentDynamics, was, just to get a different view than the operator. So instead of putting the hot take in your mouth, why don't you go ahead and hit us with it?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've always kind of struggled with is like, there are so many really amazing industry leaders that I'm seeing not get speaking engagements because they just don't have the money that they can put towards it. Like, they, more often than not, it's like, hey, if you sponsor this event, we'll get you a speaking opportunity. Or if you contribute in some way, we'll get you X. And don't get me wrong, like, there's definitely some supplier partners out there that are absolutely killing it in the speaking circuit. Like, I think about Christy over at Realink. Like, if you don't have her at your conference, you guys are missing out. And I think that's just dumb.
Man, we effed up.
Include. Oh, did you not add her to the summit? Well, yeah, you missed out there. But she's an incredible speaker. She has really good insights, and she's been on the speaking circuit and doing really, really awesome things. But then I think about, I just think about some of the other supplier partners that have, like, they have an amazing presence on LinkedIn, but their speaking engagements constantly get declined because they're not willing to sponsor. And that's just been the common thread that we see of, like, not being able to, like, participate in that way and not have the voice heard. And so I think this is just a great opportunity for us to share that space, because it's going to be both operators and suppliers participating in this guide versus just one or the other. And then each of them are going to be able to weigh their insights. And then it also allows you to have a better picture. Like, there's a lot of people that have only worked for one company their entire tenure, and they might have just a very isolated picture of what things look like in the multifamily space. And so I think being able to have somebody from the supplier end who has multiple takes from multiple different agencies gives them just a little bit more of a leg up in terms of the knowledge that they have on the industry.
Yeah. Well, I'll just highlight, I don't think a lot of folks know that for many of the speaking engagements, as you said, the operators will get asked, if they have a good PR team, they can, like, put in a submission, as many do, and say, oh, you can speak at NAA. But on the supplier side, it tends to be like, great, we love the submission idea if you cut us a check for X tens of thousands of dollars. And so a lot of times, like, in the early going, I remember Reed was really, critical of a lot of the conferences we went to, and he's like, why is this content all the same? It's like, well, because it's all the same people that are putting up dollars, and they're just, like, kind of rehashing their old content. So anyways, I thought that was an interesting call out. And you also mentioned to us ahead of the call that, an operator is interesting, but it's only looking at their slice of the business. When you versus, Trevor from RentDynamics, you guys touch whatever hundreds or maybe even over 1,000 management companies, and then you get a lot of different looks. So then shouldn't theoretically Trevor have really good industry insight on what's happening at large versus a small, niche of property management company A? So I just thought that was really cool.
Rent Plus product alone has access to about 2 million units worth of data points. That just opens up the sheer volume of insight that we can have. And the same can be said for most of our supplier partners that are contributing to this, is they have easily 3 times as much insight as one operator.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think that's what's interesting. Like, for me, just on our side of things, we used to really target this, like, middle section of management companies, meaning we don't have a sales team or marketing team, as many folks know, but we found a good sweet spot between folks that had 20 buildings and 60 buildings. And that gave us a very different view of things than when we were working just with the top 50 list. And also it's been very different as we started to get folks that are more on the startup front or the mom and pop front. They have a very different need. And so for us to scale as a company, I think we have 70 management companies or so today. As we've scaled, are direct clients and not partnerships. But on the direct client side, it's really caused us to have to like rebuild some of our infrastructure differently because they're different. It's different needs and wants, from those different segments. So I appreciate that. I also love your idea of doing almost like a Wikipedia. Does this relate? And I'm sorry, Trevor, if I'm giving anything away, but you had mentioned to us at NAA about having almost like a database of like integration things. This is it?
Yeah. So this is kind of like phase one of it is to just get everybody on it in some capacity. And then as people are getting more comfortable with sharing their insight as to like how they operate or how they work or what works, this is going to be that option for them to talk about who they integrate with, or at least for us to like create this let me back up. So like the thing that's really interesting is like when you think about like the comparison guides, like where you have like I called out Perk about a year ago or so for them doing a comparison guide to BetterBot when I was there. And I'm just like, hey, your data's incorrect. Like you should update it. And then they didn't want to update it, so they just took it down. This is going to be kind of like that option of like, hey, I went to your website and saw that you say you integrate with these pieces. Here's what we put on the Wikipedia page of like, here's the thing where it says like, you integrate with Yardi this way, or we're aware of your integration of Yardi is not actually a direct integration, but it's actually a handoff, and you guys work through like highly. And so having those things clearly called out will give them an option to be either A, support that and show it clearly, or B, update it themselves. I think that's going to be the best route for it. It's just like putting the cards out on the table for everybody, because if we continue to say that we integrate in a way that makes the operator side feel more comfortable, we're never going to actually get to a point where like the smaller shops that don't have the money to fork over for a Yardi integration right off the gate will have that opportunity. And so I think that's a whole other hot take that I have, is that when you look at how integration is being talked about and how it's a gatekeeper for a lot of operators to have certain key integrations, they don't ask like the actual way that thing integrates or the cost that it would have on the supplier side in order to have that integration, even if they have an incredible idea. So it's just a nice way for us to kind of like start opening up that discussion more for how integration actually works.
Yeah, I love the at least notion of it being the source of truth around integrations and partnerships, because there is a lot of misleading information, and I hate saying it, but suppliers that indicate they have 80 different integrations, but if you actually were to vet them, you'd be like, well, being able to pull an from FTP, grab a file and upload it to your platform or whatever is not actually integration. And then also the integrations like with your big PMS systems, as David's often educating us internally, but he's like, there's 30 different APIs, and our data officer has come to know for any one of these platforms. And so when you say you're integrated, what does that really mean? Yeah. Do you have just
the PMS
inventory, or yeah,
it's just crazy. Like, yeah, I think it's just so interesting. And like from previous roles that I've had, like I've been really happy with RentDynamics and how they own the integrations that they actually have, and they're very clear and transparent as to what those integrations look like. But like previous groups that I've been a part of, like there's integrations that are on that list that are there because it could happen versus actually happen. And so I think that's one of the things where it's like having that ability to say, it's like, hey, like I could dunk, but it might take me a little bit of time to actually get to that point.
So how are you going to promote this other than obviously on podcasts like this, but how aggressive are you going to get with promoting this guide? Meaning, at the next major trade show, would we see, at the footer of your, pavilion or whatever, the leasing enablement guide, or is it going to be predominantly, again, organic kind of, let people put on LinkedIn and tag their company, etc.
Yeah. So I started discussions with NAA and NMHC to actually have this as a supported guide from both of their organizations, to where I don't have to do the promotion piece. It would be something that they would actually send out to their members as a valid resource. We're hitting kind of a roadblock right now is the dollar amount. Is that in order for them to want to promote it, they're wanting us to fork over a sizable dollar amount, even though it's not a resource that's an advertisement. They see it as an advertisement. And so I'm slowly working that gate, but I'm very confident that by next year, it'll be something that they'll want to support. If it's by just me constantly tagging them on every single post that we do, being like, hey, is this NAA approved yet?
Yeah. Well, Trevor, why not have that co-opt, instead of you guys having to foot the bill? But if obviously any supplier that's part of that is going to benefit. So couldn't you, ask for some contributions from all the participants and probably quickly get to the number they're asking for?
If I were to do that, I would also want to have the operators that are contributing to this as well also pay, because that's helping their personal brands go up. And I mean, it's where I got, like at NAA, I got a lot of flack because I charged tickets to the associations that try to get into our parties. And so it's like, if you're coming in as a supplier partner, like you're paying supplier partner rates. If you're coming in as an operator and a guest or like the target audience, then I won't charge you. But this is something where it's like, I don't think anybody should necessarily pay for it. I feel like it's a universally shared hive mind of content that everybody should have access to, and NAA and NMHC just happen to be the gatekeepers in sharing this content at the largest scale. I'm happy to go around them and promote it above that, but like I've already requested to be on their supplier council so that I could hopefully get more of a voice within the committee there and see if this is something that they want to at least put their seal on. Because I mean, it's kind of changing up a little bit of their model in the sense that if you're not paying for your membership, then you don't get content from them. And so I want to make it so that it's readily available to anybody.
Well, Trevor, any good politician runs on three things for their platform. So I feel like you've got your platform started. I hear point number one is you are going to knock down that wall between suppliers and operators. Is this true?
That's the goal.
Okay. All right. Thank you. One dad joke, Creed. I could get one.
I was going to say, is that why Romney lost? Obama back in the days, he had a 5-point plan. It's too many.
No, 5 is too many. Yeah. We need 3.
Yeah. Well, what level of contribution is RentDynamics? Because I know you're trying to somewhat, I don't know, excuse yourself from this guide, meaning like you didn't want to be a RentDynamics guide, but I'm assuming you guys are going to be contributing some content. So I was just curious.
Yeah. So
what your role will be.
We have the benefit of being a contact center and a CRM. So we're really focused around lead management and like follow-up times and lead engagement and what conversion rates look like. And so we're going to be kind of talking a little bit more about like benchmarks and things that you could start seeing at different property levels, and the different types of volume that you should expect or be able to at least have a general awareness of. And then if you do X, it tends to result in Y. And so that's kind of the area that we're going to necessarily focus in with our contact center data and our CRM data. Then on the other side is the S within ESG, so the social component with our Rent Plus product. We're going to start looking and isolating what retention looks like when you are contributing programs that help support residents in building their credit. And showing that kind of component, I think, would actually be really helpful to just help drive more awareness to these operators of like, hey, you have the option to reporting your credit or like your on-time rent payments to the credit bureaus, and it's going to benefit your residents, and they're going to want to stay with you longer. And so we're going to start looking at what those rates look like, both what their retention rate was before our program and then what it looked like after. We've reached out to a few other partners that also do similar things in that space, as well as the CRM side. And so we're just waiting for them to give a thumbs up that they want to participate. And once they do, then I think we'll be able to have a pretty well-rounded group of data points.
Is there going to be a specific section for ESG? Like, do you think it's become big enough within the industry, or are you just expecting the suppliers, if they do something on that front, to just include that in the content they produce?
There'd be a separate section, I think, just because like the environmental component of it is something that goes well beyond the leasing piece. Like, you can market that there's an environmental component, and you can see an actual like notable lift in lead volume and conversion rate, because people want to live in a community that is socially aware and giving back to the community in a certain way. But then there's also like, it gets into like the building piece and like how it actually, like, how do you get to the point where you're having a building that's environmentally conscious? And so that would go a little bit outside. So I figure having a section within there that talks about ESG in a really thoughtful way could be super helpful. And then the G part is even harder, like talking about governance and how like resident laws are contributing to this component is definitely a tough part to really dive into. But if we have some partners that are out there that are looking to contribute to that piece, like I think about Sherry Druckman, who's been really, really involved within the Washington State legislature to help with resident law and property management law. It's been really amazing to see what she's been contributing to. So we're hoping to get her on the book too.
Cool.
Well, Trevor, I know you got a jet here. We were delayed because of my own. I don't know. I had a lot of technical difficulties getting us on the horn. But just as we finish up, what's the best way for people to get on the list to get the prior one and to get notified about the new one when the second version 2 gets published?
Ooh. If they want to get on the list, we will have a download link ready next week. So let's shoot for my birthday, September 27th. We will have leasingenablementguide.com available for people to download volume 1. And for volume 2, they'll be able to add the wait list there.
Cool. Well, thank you, Trevor. We'll get that in the show notes for people, and obviously we'll help shake some trees for you. But thanks for all the work putting it together. I know it's not easy to wrangle all these cats. You mentioned to us offline, Nurture Boss, Flamingo, BetterBot, Amenify, Spruce. You're trying to get Digible to do something, but we don't like doing homework, so maybe we won't be included. But anyways, I just appreciate all the work that you and the team are putting together for this one.
Likewise. Thank you, guys.